response by Democrats around the world, I think it is the response that Bobby is trying to generate in his very brave presidential campaign in Uganda, is not to play into the polarization, but to transcend it. I cannot emphasize the importance enough of this strategy. If you try and drill down into polarization, you play into the hands of authoritarian populists. And if you try and transcend it by appealing to people who might have supported these rulers and giving them a positive vision of the future, that's how you mobilize democratic change.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just want to make one more point before you turn to the other speakers. One of the members of the steering committee of the World Movement for Democracy, and someone well known to Bobby, Nicholas Apio, is now under assault in Kampala. His home has been broken into. All of his computers and sensitive equipment have been stolen by what seems to be an assault by elements of the state. And people like many of my colleagues here, including Bobby, who was viciously assaulted, are in very great danger. And it's very important that the World Movement for Democracy stand with them.
Well, thank you, Larry, and thank you in particular for calling out for this support for our friends in Uganda who are facing repression, like our fellow Nicholas Opio. And let's immediately turn to Bobi Wine, because he himself has experienced prison and beating and being accused of treason. Now he's a member of parliament and a presidential candidate. So, Bobi Wine, great to have you with us. We were really thrilled, and we need to hear you. Tell us, you're young, you're talking to young people. How do you see these generational aspects now being taken up in this crisis of trust? How do you play offensive against all this nasty rhetoric that supports populism, or that wants to play that populist card against democratic governance in your country in particular, which has been run by someone for over 34 years. It's about time. So Bobby, you have the floor. Tell us, what are the challenges?
Thank you very much, friends. I'm really honored to be part of this World Movement for Democracy and to share my thoughts. I want to believe that I'm sharing thoughts representing me, but also representing millions and millions of Ugandans, especially the young people who have massively taken a plunge into the politics of our country. I must mention that for a long time, the young people of Uganda have been in some way disconnected from the politics of their country, you know, considering the state efforts, denying them political education and banning it from schools, and also making sure that things like alcohol are the ones that are promoted, but not national issues. Thanks to the pain that young people have been going through, and thanks to those that came before us, now I can boast that Ugandans have massively gotten involved in the leadership of their country. However, like all authoritarian you know, dictatorships in the past, in Uganda, there is a massive attack on every last bit of democratic principle that we have. You just mentioned that one of the great activists from Uganda, Nicholas Opio, is under attack. But again, we who get under state attack and are lucky enough to catch the eye of the world, celebrate that. Otherwise, hundreds of thousands of people go through the same every day. We've seen Ugandans tortured, arrested, some of them kidnapped, and others have disappeared, but we continue to move. The most important thing with our generation is that there has been a massive demand for equal rights, for democracy. And yes, there is a big offensive of propaganda trying to send fear out from the regime through the beatings, and of course, a lot of taxpayer money is being spent to compromise those young people and to change the narrative. Like one speaker rightly noted, that the regime has every effort to, cast doubt in the forces of change and to create a narrative that indeed people are not well, but they would probably be worse off if the, sovereign leader loses power. This is the way that our nation has been governed under military dictatorship for the last close to 35 years. There's every effort for Ugandans to rise up. We are going into the election in next year, 2021. I am glad that by now we have made every effort, and this is not only credited to me, but it's credited to all the forces of change, those that came way before me, and yes, those that came after me. There is a united voice that seems to be asking for change. Ugandans are preparing for the election. This election is like no other, because unlike the past where General Yoweri Museveni has been facing competition from the usual traditional politicians, from the usual traditional political party, we in the past, to be precise, right from 2017, started a mass movement called the People Power Movement. This is what has in a great way inspired Ugandans to, get involved in their politics. And now we are. What we are dealing with is that we are pushing back against the Museveni regime and other despots who use populist propaganda to keep people in fear. It's almost unbelievable to see a person of my age pushing back against the regime. When you called me a young person, yes, I could be 38 years of age, but for me, this is too old already in Uganda. I'm very glad that other young people have picked it, and indeed, it is now catching a fire. We use music and social media and other things. Personally, I've been using music for the last more than 15 years. And my music is not just entertainment, but we call it edutainment, meaning education mixed with entertainment. I am glad that in a way, attracted the attention of young people who had, in a great way, been disconnected from politics and thinking that indeed there is a class that is supposed to rule over them while they are supposed to bear the burden of taxes and everything. But today, I am glad to report that the young people of Uganda actually feel like they own the country. This has increased the pushback against the regime, and having excited these young people and encouraged them to register as voters, we have seen a mass expansion in the voter population. And we are confident that in 2020, we are going to be able to overwhelm the dictatorship. Sorry, in 2021, did I say 2020? Maybe I'm thinking futuristically. Yeah, we are confident that in 2021, we are going to win the election. However, this has not gone unchallenged by the regime, because right now we are living every day as if it is the last day. Like all despots do in Uganda, we have been faced by arrests, illegal detention. Our young political party has been attacked. Many propped up charges have been brought up against me. Besides the cases that were slapped on us in Arua, I was charged for treason, illegal possession of firearms, etc., etc. But again, here, while I'm battling a charge of annoying the president, did you know there is such a charge as annoying the president? Well, I'm battling with one and others, including
you, Bobby. Thank you. We are running short of time. So thank you so much. All the best. We are with you and all Nicholas and all those fighting for democracy in Uganda. And we look forward to see the results of this fight that you carry with so many young people behind you. And but now building on that,
institutions, it's now like a Wild West. And what we need sheriffs who are quick on the draw.
Thank you, Gary. Now let's listen to Bobby. And Bobby, do you think that all this energy with these young people that you're being able to mobilize is going to turn in votes? Are these people going to go and vote and demand voting for you, namely?
I was listening,
I'm
and I was
going to Bobby first and then to Larry.
Sure, thank you. I was very well represented by Cynthia. Thank you, Cynthia, for your submission. Indeed, in the past, young people have been greatly bored by the long formal speeches that explains why many young people had been disconnected from what matters. And sadly, in the past, music has not been well utilized to address issues that matter. Of course, we have special cases like Fela Kuti, cases like Miriam Makeba, cases like Bob Marley and others that highlighted music and focused it to where it's supposed to address, because it's important to know that music addresses reality. Music is more like the reflection of society. So our ability to disseminate these messages has, one, helped, but also been to the detriment of the people, in my context, the people of Uganda. It has helped because it has gotten people interested. Messages that wouldn't have otherwise been able to make their way to the eyes and minds of the people have done so. It must be noted that in my context in Uganda, all formal political communication has been banned and has been systematically sidelined. It is only through music that we've been able to smuggle the message of freedom, the message of democracy to the eyes and ears of the people. And that explains why, in my context of Uganda, social media now is taxed. And as if that is not enough, the government in Uganda is moving to regulate social media pages and Facebook. As we speak now, I must get a license. First of all, I pay a fee to even be here. I pay a fee, I pay a tax of 200 shillings to use Facebook, to use Instagram and all other medias. However, because the young people are so, connected and gravitating towards social media and technology, now the government has actually issued a notice that all of us need to get a license before we can communicate on our social media handles. So that explains that technology, yes, it is being embraced right now, but it is also being utilized to limit the people, and it's being weaponized by the regime against the people. Against popular culture, music, dance, drama, poetry, painting, etc., I see it as the future. Today, I am representing the biggest number of people, of young people in Uganda. Why? Because of the music, because of the art, because this is something that gravitates to them. It does not present itself in a formal way, but it finds itself addressing the core issues that all people find so dear, especially the young people. So yes, art and technology is the future. I must also, as I close, address all the rigging exercise and machinery that is being done here in Uganda. While we go into the election, there's every effort to rig elections, and Ugandans only depend on social media. As a person, there's been limitations, not going to radio and TV stations. Why? Because it drives in the young people. Now, it is music, it is art, it is technology, it is social media and the internet that is driving young people to pick interest and in the election, and indeed to recognize that they have the power and they can maximize it through ways that are not the usual contemporary ways.
Thank you, Bobby. And of course, we hope that they will use to go and vote for you. Now, Larry, would you like to? Would you like to
Sure.
wrap it up, because you're in California, the homeland of these big social platforms that people are seeing.
Let me say, Bobby would be a big hit here in California, and someday when he's president of Uganda, we will bring him here to speak on the Stanford University campus, or even before. But Anna, there's another point I wanted to make, which I think will complement well what's been said, including the latest contribution, Bobby Wine. I think that we need to recognize that democracy is both a method for choosing leaders and a set of institutions and rules for affirming and protecting freedom. And we need to use the words freedom, human rights, rule of law, transparency, accountability, and so on, much more than we sometimes do in this context. You know, authoritarian rulers can and do manipulate the dialogue to get people to fear political competition, and they stigmatize the opposition and so on. But the soft underbelly of their appeal and their rule is that they leave people insecure for their rights and robbed of their dignity because they're treated like slaves and they're treated like children. And if you use the language of, to go back to the original struggle for popular sovereignty in Africa, of liberation, and of course the post-1990 wave of democratization in Africa was called the Second Liberation. So I think what we're dealing with now in Uganda, in Ethiopia, in Sudan, in the struggle that Cynthia is a part of to get real democracy and not the semi-democracy that they have in Nigeria, is a third liberation. And people need to understand that there is no instance ever in the world, it just hasn't even existed. And please don't give me Rwanda or Singapore as a counterexample of an authoritarian regime doing a good job of defending human rights, or even providing a rule of law. They don't do it. Kagame is a pure fraud in this regard. He goes around the continent and elsewhere hunting down his opponents and murdering them. And he's much more corrupt than the international community understands. So if we make this case that it's not just about democracy as political competition and the right to vote, it's that political competition and the right to vote in the free and fair elections that Bobby is struggling for are a method to secure freedom, accountability, transparency, control of corruption, and ultimately human dignity. I think that is a winning message that these autocrats cannot push back against.
Well, thank you so much, Larry. I think you wrapped wonderfully the debate. For me to listen to all of you. Thank you. Ryota?
No, this is Carl.
Oh, hi, Carl.
Okay. Thank you, Anna, and thanks for moderating it so well under such difficult circumstances from your automobile, from your car. It's been terrific. It's been a wonderful discussion. And let me just try to briefly to summarize the main points. I think Anne opened it up very well by just talking about the way in which Russia, with its information warfare, and China with its sharp power and United Front influence operations, have made the values of freedom and human rights, that what Larry just talked about. This is now, in the contemporary world, this has become the new terrain of strategic competition in the world. We've entered a new era in this way, where values have become at the center of political and strategic competition in the world. And then people talk very well about the way to fight this battle. You can't, as Gary said, allow the demagogues to define the issues. It has to be defined in what Larry called a positive vision of what the possibilities are, how to transcend populism. But we also need, in the democracies, we need good governance. And here, I think, what I think was the main point of all of our speakers, Bobby, Cynthia, and Omaid, that all of them were emphasizing that there is in the world today, and I think this is really because of social media and the spread of information and communications, a massive demand for rights, which of course the dictators are fighting against. And this is expressed through music, through art, through technology, and that young people, as Cynthia emphasized, and women are demanding participation. And so the struggle is going to be about rights, freedom, inclusion, values. And that's what the center of the world struggle is today. And the demand for these values is increasing, which I think should give us hope. One final point, as we look to the future, I think we haven't really talked about specific struggles today, but I want to emphasize that the struggle going on in Belarus today and the struggle going on in Hong Kong, the threat to Taiwan, which is an alternative to China as a Confucian Chinese democracy, these are extremely critical struggles. The struggle, of course, in Afghanistan, in Afghanistan where you have negotiations, or in Uganda where you have elections coming up, these are critical too. And the important thing today, which we have to remember, is to stand with the activists who are on the front lines of this struggle. And that means Nicholas Apoyo in Uganda and all of the thousands upon thousands of people who are with him. It means Svetlana Alexievich, who is now locked in her home, the Nobel laureate in Belarus, and threatened by the regime. She's the last remaining member in freedom of the Presidium of the Coordinating Council of the Belarusian leadership, would be standing with Joshua Wong and others in Hong Kong. This solidarity, I think, and the struggle in specific situations for freedom and dignity and rights are going to determine the outcome of the struggle. We have a gigantic job to do in our democracies, especially here in the United States. We're not doing very well in terms of our performance. We're not doing well in many other respects. We have to do better. We have to come back. We have to be able to be part of the struggle. But the inspiration for this struggle today is coming from on the ground in one country after another. And because the demand is so strong for freedom and democracy and human rights, I think there is hope for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Carl. Now, I'd like to invite Kevin Casas-Zamora. He's the Secretary General of the International IDEA. Under his leadership, International IDEA, NED, World of Democracy.